You are here for the HE error on your Samsung dryer. We're going to show you how to troubleshoot it. Unfortunately, you do have to break the whole thing down. Now, before you start any projects, you should unplug any device, turn off any water, just to stay safe. And of course, these videos are for entertainment purposes only. Wear gloves, you are working with sheet metal, and wear long sleeves. Now let's get into disassembling the faceplate. Now here you're just going to add a little bit of tension, and you're just going to slightly pull at the top because this is on a retention clip, and you don't want to break those clips, otherwise you're going to have to replace that white piece sitting at the top. And then there's two little L hooks that go into the bottom. Once you get this faceplate off, just disconnect these wires and then put that in a safe spot. Now you see me just kind of pointing out the screws at the bottom. You're going to do the two screws at the bottom by the door on either side of that sticker. And then there's going to be 4 screws on the top, and then 2 releasing tabs that you're going to depress with a screwdriver. Now you see the screw I'm removing now? You don't need to remove it. I realized this after. It's just holding something behind that. It doesn't need to be touched. Again, it's the 2 screws on either side of the sticker that release the bottom half. Now here you're really going to want to be careful. If you just were to pull this faceplate off, you probably snap the switch. It's really important that you don't do that. If you do snap the switch, you're going to need to replace it. Now there are, I believe, 2 screws at the top. I actually don't remember. Obviously, you got a picture of my rear end. I should have moved the camera, but you know, the project's done. So there's just, you want to get this top panel off and away from everything. There's going to be some twist ties in the back that hold all the wires in. And you're just going to release those, and that way you can just get this part off so you can get the drum retainer off. Now here you do see me unscrewing the drum retainer before taking the top piece off. This is however you want to do it. There's this little kind of tray on the bottom for your lint, and that's going to come off too. I thought I could just take it off all on, just the top piece off, but it's better to just take it off. It was way easier. And these are those twist ties I was talking about. Just take your time with them and don't pull too hard. That way you're not replacing more components than you have to. And now that we got the final screw off, this is going to release the drum. There are wheels on it, there are sensors on it. You do want to be careful with it. There is a wire in the lower right that you do have to disconnect before pulling away. So now that it's free, we're going to move to the back side so we can release the belt. Now some people like to reach through the front. I find it to be a royal pain in the butt to do this. So this is my approach. So we get direct access. You can see the belt right there. And we're just going to reach in and release it. Alright, so to get this off, there's that little white wheel that's on a spring-loaded system. You want to push that to the right until you get enough leeway, and doing this one-handed can be difficult, but once it releases, it just all falls apart and it's free to go. Just make sure that the belt doesn't, when you're pulling the drum up, get caught. Alright, and here we have 3 different sensors. Well, actually, one is the element, and then there's 2 sensors. So then there's your computer, which you might need to replace. And then we're just going to do an ohms test with a multimeter, make sure that the sound is on. And then this way, you can just make sure that everything has continuity, that there isn't a break in anything. So that's the element right there that I'm testing. And then these are the other sensors that you might need. One of them is a heat sensor. I forget what the other one is. These sensors, they're usually fine, but if you want, you can replace this whole thing. I think they're like $65 on Amazon, and you can get the element pre-installed, all the sensors pre-installed, and you just basically pull this one out, throw the other one in, you're good to go. Alright, now I'm going to show you actually how to take this apart. If you are really on a budget, you can just get the heating element. Now this may not necessarily be your HE error, but sometimes there's a break in the filament. You got to take it apart. And let me tell you, this thing bit me like 3 times. I had to get band-aids. So you're going to see gloves slowly come on and band-aids slowly come on. These are the sensors that I'm taking off. I'm kind of putting them on this little tray here that just kind of keep track of the screws and everything else. I don't take the filament apart because it is a little bit more of a process. I start to and then realize I might not be able to get this off without snipping them, and then I tried working with the ceramic retainer and I wasn't able to get that either. So when you do put this back together, you're going to have to compress it, and that's when you start getting cuts. So that's where gloves is really important. Again, you're working with sheet metal. It's always going to bite you at some point, and if you don't have protective gear. So long sleeves, don't do what I'm doing. Wear your protective gear. That way you don't need stitches. So here you should be taking note, if you're replacing the filament itself, of how this goes together. I've seen some filaments where it's just the filament. Others come on this tray, basically pre-installed on that tray to show how that's kind of that figure 8. So it just depends on what your budget is and how much you're trying to save. And now I'm just going to put it back together as if you had done this repair. I've never done it the other way, so I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not going to show you that just because I'm not familiar with it. But this is going to go back together like so, and it's just 6 screws. You're going to be able to tell where the screws were because they have little markings on the sheet metal. It's actually pretty easy once you get it apart to get it back together. Just keep track of your screws. And now we're just going to reinstall the sensors, just try to keep note of the orientation. As you noticed when I was doing the continuity test, I basically disconnected the two blue wires on the sensors and the red wire on the filament. Then I just checked to make sure everything was fine. And these sensors were great. Now it should be noted some people, as I mentioned earlier, will just, if they have the 65 bucks, just replace this whole thing. But you don't want to just start throwing parts. Again, it's usually the thermistor, which we're going to get into next. So now we're going to use the wife's vacuum, create a later argument, and clean out this thing before we put it all back together. This is your chance to really clean this thing up like it was brand new and just get it back in the tip-top performance, because once you replace these sensors, this thing should last until you get the HE error again. Alright, and I thought I actually had a video, but you see that thing that I'm vacuuming in the front that has that little fan in it? That's where your thermistor is. And that's what is probably broken. So mine had the issue. So there's the thermistor. I'm putting the plug back on, and then that's I forget what the other sensor is, but typically you'll replace that sensor, the black sensor, in the primary of the frame there, not the one that I'm messing with. But that's usually your issue. It's a $7 part. Now here's the catch with the thermistor. Sometimes you'll replace the thermistor and you have to actually replace this computer board. So you replace the thermistor and the computer board at the same time. You can try the thermistor first. This is actually less involved. You don't have to break everything down. This computer is like right there when you take the top off. So if you replace the thermistor, doesn't work, you go and you're going to have to replace this board. The last time I priced them out, they were about $275, 300 bucks. They might have gone down, but you can get them on Amazon. And they're pretty easy to put together and take apart. Just be really careful when you're disconnecting stuff, because of course if you break a wire, now you're replacing a wiring harness. Alright, and I'm going to show you everything. These aren't new parts. The thermistor is a new part, but these aren't new parts. So I'm just going to remind you that before you take anything apart, you have my video for reference, but always take a picture, because there's nothing that kills confidence with a repair of whether or not it's going to last, or, did you do something wrong that could cause a fire that's going to have you and your wife nervous if you, turn this sucker on in the middle of the night. And, it just kind of creates that worry for some people. Just take a picture, and of course, if you're not careful with the wiring, you might be replacing some things, but that's not going to be the case because you came here.
Are you filming right now?
Yeah.
Grab your coffee over here.
That beep was an accident.
That was an accident. I hit the steering wheel with my purse. Can I kiss you?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be on the camera?
No,
Ready?
Alright, and here we're actually going to be replacing the sensor to the left of the thermistor first, and then again there's the thermistor on the right, and that's in the very, very front. Now you can try to replace this without taking everything apart, but man, you better have arms like Stretch Armstrong, because it's not easy to get to. You might be able to get a really long screwdriver and just kind of finagle it, but the best thing is to just rip it all down and test all your components. That way you're not just throwing parts at it blindly in this case. And, you know, the continuity test, checking the filament, having a chance to clean everything, it's worth the effort, in my opinion. And now we're just gonna throw the stuff back in. Remember that your sensor orientation. I think the black wires were on the bottom, blue on the top for your sensors, and then the blue wire, I believe, was on the bottom for the heating element. Red wire on top. And then once this is done, we're gonna throw the drum back in. So it goes together and comes apart really fast. So again, try to keep in mind what your drum orientation was. If you make the mistake and forget, you know that it goes clockwise, and you know that the flat part wants to basically grab those clothes and push them up and around. That way it can fluff them and get it really dry. Now you're going to line them up with the rear wheels, and then when you bring the front piece in, that has wheels on it too. You're just going to have to line that all up. Make sure that it has a little bit of resistance, but not too much. And then, of course, once you get this on, you're going to screw it in place. So essentially, there's these wide openings that have slits in them. It's kind of like a keyhole. You're going to rest that on them as the wheels get lined up, and then drop it. You put all your screws in. Remember to attach that wire in the lower right, and then the tray in the front, and you'll be ready to reattach the belt for the dryer drum. And this is the top faceplate that holds your control panel in. Just keep in mind your wire orientation and the twist ties. And I believe there are 4 screws holding this plate in place. And then once that's in, you can put the faceplate back on and reattach the switch. Okay, there are 2 tabs here, retaining tabs on the top of this plate. Don't trust them. Okay, try to get everything, at least 1 screw in, so this thing just doesn't fall in case the retaining clips fail, and that way you won't wreck that switch. Really important that you take that step, because sometimes it flies forward and next thing you know you're ordering a new part and delaying your job an extra 2-3 days. So, or whenever you can get around to it. So I attached the wires along the bottom of the door. These are actually you're going to be looking at your screws and going, oh, what are these screws with the washers on them? That's the 2 ones on the either side of the sticker. And just that's the only difference in many of the screws that you'll find. All right, and here I'm just making sure that the top screws are in. I'm making sure that the wiring's all good, everything's connected, and then we can just throw that faceplate back on. I haven't actually done the belt yet, but we'll get to that in a second. If you're new to this, maybe you want to attach the belt and make sure that everything does after that drum retainer goes in. All right, my GoPro light kept quitting around here. So what you're gonna do is just put that belt at the front of that white part, and you're gonna have to do this one-handed. It actually isn't that as easy as it looks. I had a lot of trouble with this. There's actually about 10 minutes of video I had to cut because I had such an issue. But that's how you get it in, is you put it on the front of the white part, the pulley, and then you push it back and then loop it around that main drive. And then you're just going to make sure that your drum does spin, has a little bit of resistance because it is attached to a motor. All right, and this part is really easy. You just shine a flashlight down this connecting hose here, and it's an insulated hose that goes into the exhaust. And if you look down, my light was dying here, so I just look down, line it up, and push it in. It's really easy, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Now, if you can't get your dryer into the garage like I did, you can see that maybe is why a lot of people don't like it. And then, of course, you're probably noticing an issue here. I was in a rush because my light was dying, so I forgot to put that little tongue area over the back side of the lip. But just a mistake many of you probably noticed. If not, it's something to just keep in mind when everything's going back together. All right, and hopefully I put enough warnings at the front of the video. This is a high voltage device. Make sure that it's unplugged. I took the plug apart. I mean, I really took it apart just to get it into the garage because I hate things swinging around. They're so light, you can just put them on a dolly. This was really easy to get down there, up and back in. And of course I got it out of the way just so I wasn't working around where my wife was, trying to get stuff done as well. So she really appreciated that. I'm Joel with Dissecting DIY. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. We're going to get this hook backed up, show you that it works, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments.